Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm your host today, Minnie Gu. Today we're pleased to have a panel of guests with us. Julie and Lisa, member of the Berowra area.
Nice to be with you.
I also have Giselle, Liberal candidate for Bradfield.
新年快乐.
And Scott Young, Liberal candidate for Bennelong.
Nice to be here and 新年快乐，大家好.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Minnie.
Today we're going to discuss a number of topics that the community is really interested and concerned about, including reducing crimes, strengthening the economy, and what's the Liberal Party's plan. Now, before we start, would you please introduce yourself to our audience?
I'm Julian Lisa. I'm the federal member for Berowra. I've been the member for Berowra for 9 years. I'm a lawyer by background. I was a company director before I was a member of parliament. I worked for 4 years at Australian Catholic University, so education is very important to me. And recently I was made the Shadow Assistant Minister for Foreign Affairs.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you, Mimi. I appreciate this. So now I'm Giselle Kapterian. I'm the Liberal candidate for Bradfield. I come from a migrant background. I'm first generation Australian myself, as share a story with many of you. Education is very important in our family. And I used my education here in Australia to become an international trade lawyer, where I was involved in ensuring that the tools of trade were used to create a level playing field for small business and large business alike and create jobs. And then more recently, I have been involved in the technology sector, working on issues like data and privacy. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to represent the people of Bradfield on these very important issues, should they choose to place their confidence in me at the next election.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Scott Young. I'm your Liberal candidate for Bennelong. 大家好，我是 Scott Young， 我是中文的名字是荣世成，我是这里的国会联邦议员 Bennelong 的地区候选人，自由党的候选人。我的地区有 Eastwood、Marsfield、Ryde、Chatswood West， 还有 Hunters Hill 大概这个地区。然后我自己是开我的教育的生意，我也非常 passionate， 像 Julian 跟 Giselle 一起 for education， 我觉得这个对我们后一代、下一代也全部都非常重要的，所以非常感恩。我妈妈是上海人，我爸爸香港人，今年是33岁。
欢迎Scott. Okay, so let's dive into the topics. So let's discuss cost of living and economic downturn. Big topic to start with, isn't it? Let's hit it hard. Now, Julian, the rising living costs are hitting vulnerable groups hard, especially in the health and aged care. As the Deputy Chair of the Standing Committee on Health, Aged Care and Sport, what is your perspective on this challenge and what measures does the Liberal Party propose to ease their financial burden?
Well, look, since the Labor government has been elected in 2022, we've seen living costs go up in every imaginable area, whether it's the cost of groceries or whether it's the cost of fuel or whether it's the cost of energy, and indeed health costs are rising as well. And it's something that we're very concerned about. We're particularly concerned about the way in which bulk billing rates have plummeted under the Labor government, and we want to restore bulk billing rates and we want to back Medicare because it's very important for Australians wanting to access healthcare. We believe that regardless of your income and your financial circumstances, you have the right to access a high quality healthcare service in Australia.
Absolutely.
One of the things that we're particularly passionate about in the coalition is mental health. I'm the chair of the Parliamentary Friends of Suicide Prevention. Sadly, my own father died by suicide, and it has prompted me to really have a strong focus throughout my career on this issue. Before COVID, you could only get 10 psychological sessions covered by Medicare. During COVID, we introduced that and we doubled that to 20. Even before COVID, people were saying to me, 10 sessions is not enough. So having it at 20 was the right spot. Now, when the Labor government came in, they cut that back to 10, and we know as a result the number of people who need sessions, who need access to mental health care has plummeted, and we know people who need access to more intense care aren't able to access it. So it is our promise to restore the Medicare-funded health psychological sessions to 20 sessions a year. And we think that that's adequate, and it demonstrates our seriousness on this issue. The other thing that we're very concerned about, and is a real priority for us, is around women's health. My wife has endometriosis, and this has been a real challenge for our families. It is a challenge for so many families across Australia, and so many women particularly. And so we particularly want to invest in women's health to ensure that we are getting better solutions for some of those chronic conditions.
Thank you for that.
Actually, Minnie, can I add to that? I know one of the things that our community has been speaking to us about all up and down Barara and Bennelong and Bradfield. You know, we come from communities where we place such an emphasis on taking care of our elders in our family. I don't live very far from my parents. My sister doesn't live very far from me. We all live very close by to each other because it's about helping each other through the community.
Yes.
I know one of the big things that we're focused on is to ensure that we bring down government spending so that the money can be used in the right way. For example, aged care, healthcare, aged care at home. And I know that's something that the coalition government, the Liberal government, has been very passionate about for a long time, about ensuring that healthcare is about choice for the individual and the family, understanding that the context in which each of us give healthcare is very much a matter for the individual and the family that surrounds them, and making it easier for each of us to participate in that healthcare. Julian, I know you've been doing a lot of work on ensuring that cost of inflation government spending comes down so that we can spend it in the right areas like aged care.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's been a real focus of ours. The two things we can do to affect the cost of living more broadly is to reduce government spending and to ensure that we increase productivity. If we increase productivity, that means that we should help reduce the cost of living. And one of the things that I know we're going to talk about a bit later is the importance of helping small business to be able to employ more people. And I back small business people in our community. We all back small business people, come from small business families. That's the Liberal Party is the party of small business.
That's right.
And in each of our electorates, the small business is the backbone. If you are making it harder for small business to employ people, if you're making it harder for small business to open their doors every day, then you are setting our economy up for failure. And so we need to release the small business people, we need to back them, and that's what we're doing in our policy.
Absolutely. Okay, so the next question we have is with continuous interest rate hikes and increasing mortgage pressure, the Liberal Party has proposed measures like cutting the government waste and controlling inflations. Given your experience in trade and finance, Giselle, what specific measure do you believe that will help stabilise the economy and ease the financial burden on families?
Well, I mean, you mentioned a couple already, you know, that really within government's control at the moment, to take the reins off the extreme government expenditure we've seen over the last couple of years, rein in that spending and ensure that government redefines its role in the life of Australians the way we know it should. It's not about, government should not be creating jobs because, as we know, that's just public servant jobs that's paid for by the taxpayer, but rather putting in place the right infrastructure to let our communities, our small businesses, our large businesses flourish. That's really what it's all about, making sure that we come back to fundamentals. The first role of government is to allow for free enterprise to flourish in society. And I think over the last couple of years, government has lost its way on that, and we need to bring that back, to redefine those measures. And you know, it's simple things like putting in place the right infrastructure, water, internet. These are the roads and transport.
Absolutely.
It's about ensuring the taxation levels at the right level as well, to encourage small business and large business to come here and manufacture, to attract great talent into our country. We have long been a very talented country. For all of us who've lived and worked overseas, we see Australians doing so well, and Australians of multicultural backgrounds representing our nation overseas. We're so skilled. And it's about ensuring that the education systems in Australia are great, but that we have the jobs here that keep people here so that they stay in our wonderful country and contribute to our ongoing prosperity. So these are the kinds of things that only government can have a role in and needs to get involved in rather than becoming industry itself. And I think that if we can redefine that sooner rather than later, particularly now when we're seeing economies change rapidly, this is very important. And we're seeing at the moment overseas, my background in trade, a lot of countries use trade tools for the betterment of their own people, or certainly for their own understanding of what they think is the betterment of their own country. It's about Australia understanding its own role in the supply chain of the products that are actually going to define our economies. Everything from renewables right the way through to advanced manufacturing. We have a really important role to play, but we need the right investment, the right skills, the right people, and the right economic environment to make sure those businesses stay here.
Absolutely. We can't be good at everything, but we need to highlight what we're good at.
Exactly, comparative advantage, that's right.
Yeah, echoing what Giselle said and Julian, I think small businesses are the backbone of our economy. If we look at it, Minnie, over 27,000 businesses have closed over the past 2.5 years, 27,000. And, you know, when you walk down a street like West Ryde in Bennelong, you see so many people who has sadly shut shop. I mean, as much as it's very, very inspiring to see businesses open up, there was the Chill restaurant in Eastwood the other day open up, that so many has closed down. And I'm talking to small business owners right now, and their energy bills 2 years ago was, for example, 3,100, and now it's just under 6,000 now. So that's almost doubling, and I think that's a big challenge. And to Julian's point, I think we need to support productivity. And what Giselle said, it's about the private sector also creating jobs. 我觉得非常不容易，做一个开生意的人，你要投资钱，你要投资这个 risk 去开你的生意，然后你也可以。Thanks for understanding a bit of Chinese, Giselle. And I think it's
multiculturalism.
重要 for businesses to create jobs, 不是 just the government to create jobs. 所以自由党 the Liberal Party 非常重要，要支持这个 private sector 这个生意，去投资他们的钱，开多点生意，也 create more jobs. 我觉得是非常重要的。
Absolutely.
Very important.
Absolutely. I think Giselle made a very good point just now. The government role is like as an enabler and as a wider Chinese and Asian community. They're known for running, operating, small businesses, and however much or little they contribute to the community is important. It's important to their families, livelihood, to the community as well. So it wasn't just about the commercial business, because think about for all the communities we live in, right, is that early opening bakeries, the news agency, the laundry. That's what consists and come together and make our community, and that's so important to keep the spirit and moral out. And that's more important than just a monetary and commercial perspective. And as a government, as a functioning government, that enabling small business to thrive, because don't worry about it, I'm sure our community are a very hard-working group of people. So once you give them the tool to succeed, they will just thrive and flourish.
And the best thing to do is to make them free.
Absolutely.
To reduce their regulation and so on. The more and more regulation that this Labor government has put on small businesses, the changing definition of a casual worker, making it harder for them to take people on, not backing our local cafes and restaurants who've been doing it tough. I've had the same experience that Giselle and Scott have talked about when I went to door knocking in Eastwood, and I've talked to accountancy practices and financial planners. They always know what's happening in the economy, and I've never seen them so glum about the current situation, with businesses closing, with shops that are empty and so on. That's not what we want for our country. It's certainly not what we want for Bennelong, Bradfield or Barowra. We want to see businesses flourish, because you're right, Minnie, when businesses flourish, the community flourishes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We just did actually this morning a small business forum here in Chatswood, and a lot of the people who were there were saying exactly what you were just talking about, Gillian, expressing this real concern about, I don't understand the new regulations around how I employ people. And small business, they are one of our largest employers. You know, it's about ensuring we make it easy for them to do that. The confusion around wading through all of those, you know, award changes, the definition of a casual worker, you're removing choice not only for the employer, but the employee who needs to be able to choose their time, because a lot of us have other obligations, you know, children or parents we need to take care of. You know, we want that flexibility. And it's all about ensuring that we give our citizens that choice again. Otherwise, you see, coming back to your point, Scott, why will people take the risk? Why? If we remove that choice, it is such a big investment. Anyone who's seen a small business try and start up, you know, the things they have to go through, the persistence, that energy, the big risk that they take. And, you know, they never sleep. They spend hours worrying about where the next paycheck is going to come from, and doing well and representing themselves well in the broader community. You know, you want to be able to reward that. If we're making it hard through over-regulation, we're going to see those businesses not want to take that risk anymore. And what a shame that would be. I mean, how many coffee shops and restaurants will we not be able to
enjoy?
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, we were just the other night at the opening of Zilver right here.
And that was fantastic.
Fantastic.
A great success story.
And what a great support from the community again, because they know what it takes to open up a business like that. And it was wonderful to see everyone come in to support.
Absolutely. Right. And our next question is for Scott. Now, as a young candidate from a working class family, you've seen how challenging it is to buy a home. Now, how do you think the Liberal Party's first home policy would make home ownership more realistic for people in your situation?
Well, first of all, Minnie, I was born in public housing, so I understand how important it is to own your own home. It's never easy. And I think, you know, my former boss, Mark Brewer, has told me every Australian has two dreams. It's one, to own your own home, and two, to retire comfortably. I think it's been incredibly challenging for many homeowner aspirants to get into their own homes right now. I mean, rent has gone up by 18%, and that's a lot. So it's very hard for them to save that deposit. But I think we're going to look at things from a bigger picture point of view. I mean, in 2000, the cost of a home was 2 to 3 times more your wage, 2 to 3 times more. Now it's 7.5 to 8.2 times more. So it doesn't matter how much you're earning almost. It's like the ownership of owning, the aspiration of owning your own home is currently out of reach. So what the coalition's doing is we're looking to invest $5 billion to unlock more infrastructure, because right now when I talk to a lot of property developers, for example, they're telling me that they might have some projects in the pipeline, but it's not worth starting new projects. Building costs are up, approval processes are taking a very, very long time, and on top of that, it's just overall not worth it for them to start the projects. And through our coalition's consultations with numerous councils, local governments, what they've told us, and it's so important to understand what's happening on the ground, and not just go from a top-down approach to understand what they want, what the challenges are for these businesses, for these councils, and that's why we're investing $5 billion to unlock 500,000 more homes to ensure young Australians like myself and like many others in our electorate, like Barara and Bradfield and Bennelong, can get into those homes. And it's so important for so many Australians.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic point that you make, Scott. I mean, the other thing that's so important for young people, for first home owners, and also people who have marriage breakdown, is being able to access your super. This has been, it's such a philosophically important point for us as the coalition, because superannuation that you earn is your money. It's your money that's put aside for your retirement, and we think people should be able to access that up to $50,000 to buy their first home, or if they have a marriage breakup, to use it to buy a home at that point. What they'll do, they'll put that money into the home, and when they go to sell the home, it goes back into the super. So you continue to get the benefit of the increase in asset price. But what we've seen at the moment is people are just locked out because it's taking so long for people to save for a deposit. And so the combination of that infrastructure investment and the use of your superannuation. And the third thing that we've got to say as well, which I think is really important, is we all love the multicultural nature of Australia, and we love migration. Migration has been so important for Australia. We all come from backgrounds of migrants, and the Chinese community has been here almost since the get-go of modern Australia and has made wonderful contribution to this country. But what the Labor government has done is over the last 2 years they've brought 1 million people to Australia, on average about a new person every 46 seconds. And we just can't house them. That's the problem. So we've said that we were going to have a pause in the migration intake for 2 years, and we're going to cut it by 25%, and then we will slowly bring it back again. And that is just so we can house people, and so Australians who are living here have access to the market. We can let the market catch up with the people who are here.
Absolutely. Yeah, when infrastructure can't catch up with the demand, I mean, the demand is good, but if it's chaos, if it creates more chaos in the market, in the community, then we've got to put a pause onto something that until we catch up on.
We do.
Like, we can service everyone better, we can service our existing communities better before we can service anyone else.
That's exactly right.
And how crazy is it that we have such a demand for our housing supply here, and yet we can't have, the people who do the supply are going bust at unprecedented rates. In which other market does that happen, where demand is so high and you can't even, the suppliers are going broke, they're going under? That's because we've strangled that industry with over-regulation, too long for DAs, too long, there is a confusion at all levels of government about where we're going, what the direction is. We need to have that cooperation at all levels to ensure that we have housing supply increased, but in a way that works with the communities as well, to preserve that natural environment, to preserve the heritage, beautiful areas that we've all bought into, that if we're lucky enough to have got a home, we want to make sure that the fabric of those communities is also preserved as well. So, you know, done in a sensible, thoughtful way, we ensure the beautiful value of the areas, as well as the integration and increased fabric and of those areas, while ensuring that we have that economic element to it as well. And we see a lot of the build on top of shops, so we've got the right amenities in the area, the infrastructure being put in place as well for transport, so you don't have the road blockages we were talking about earlier, which is becoming more and more common experience across Sydney, in order to be able to ensure that everyone has a beautiful standard of living, as well as the right level of cost of living.
That's right.
And many of these construction businesses are small businesses as well, so
Yes.
linking to, you know, our other issues. So think about housing, small businesses, and I know they employ many skilled workers from overseas, be it working holiday, just working, you know, as a lollipop person, traffic control. It's all very important. And I think about all these issues, they're all very interlinked. It's not one or another. They're all very important. So if you only focus on one thing, solving one problem, but ignoring all the other issues, that's not going to be solving the problems. We can't solve everything, we can't solve all the problems, but let's have a bigger picture, broader view, trying to help as many as possible.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And for the Liberal Party has proposed increasing housing supply to alleviate housing pressure. Given the current scarcity of land resources, does the Liberal Party have specific plans to ensure this goal is achievable?
Well, look, Scott, I think, well outlined what our policy is in that regard. Less in our electorates, although there's some part of my electorate that is semi-rural, but in other places where there's greenfield sites, where those developments just can't get cracking because, let's say, there's a roundabout that has to be built in order to facilitate the development, or you know, there's a difficult connection between the sewage and the water. The federal government, under the Liberal Party proposal, is going to pay for some of that infrastructure to allow the developer to put houses on the land. And we've developed our proposal in consultation with local councils, because local councils are on the ground actually engaged in the approvals. We haven't sat in a room and thought, oh, this would be a good idea. It's what we do as Liberals. We bring practical experience from business, from government to problems. And here we've seen a problem. We've seen that we've got developments that are not taking place when we've got a housing supply. So it's about providing that infrastructure to allow the builders and the developers to build those houses that Australians need.
Fantastic. And then next we're going to move on to the topics of community safety. Now we've had houses, we have small businesses. Let's talk about community safety. Now, community safety is a growing concern, especially with the rising crime rates. The Liberal Party's measure, like banning knives for minors and also combating drug abuse, seems promising. Now, how do you think these policies can specifically improve safety for the Chinese community? And also, many committee members believe better lighting, security cameras and police presence can deter crime. Now, does the Liberal Party plan to expand these efforts?
Well, yes, we do, Minnie. This is very important. So, community safety is absolutely vital to our party. We are led in the Liberal Party by Peter Dutton. Peter was a police officer. He has spent his life protecting women and children who are vulnerable, particularly in issues of crime and so on, and he was the Minister for Home Affairs in the previous government. So safety issues is very, very important to him, as it's important to all of us. And what have we seen in Australia in these last few years? A growing sense of lawlessness, a growing sense of crime on our streets, and growing fears in all of our communities, including the Chinese community, about the quality of life people can have when there's so much crime around. And it's the point that Giselle was making earlier about it's not just good enough to have an economy, you have to have a good standard of living. And part of the standard of living is being safe. So we are going to extend some of the state laws relating to knife crime to make it illegal to carry knives. We are going to make it illegal to post online if you have been engaging in a crime. We've seen people engage in pretty violent crimes or home invasions and they like to post it online. And we've been very tough in calling for mandatory minimum sentences for hate crimes. We led that debate that has occurred this week, and that's going to be something that is very important to all Australians, particularly in the Chinese community. So you can rest assured that our party is the party for safer streets and stronger communities, and that we have in our leadership somebody for whom community safety is absolutely vital.
That's fantastic. And we still during the Chinese New Year celebrating period, as you know, many of the visitors from China and other Asian communities, they have public holidays, so they're taking the opportunities to visit Australia. And I noticed a very interesting trend today, trying to communicate, asking questions, saying, I'm visiting Australia for the very first time, I'm excited, but you know, seeing documentary, we know you have crocodiles, big spiders, and you know, boxing kangaroos, what else do I need to watch out? Well, like, we love to see those in the city, but we don't usually actually have to venture out to the outback to see them. But then someone made a very funny comment, say, well, you need to watch out for teenagers at night. See, so you know, that's becoming a concern. Even though someone's joking, but I was saying, well, you know what, you probably won't see those in the city. Even if you want to see the crocodile Dundee, you have to pay.
I want people to come to Australia for our dangerous animals, not our dangerous crime.
Exactly, exactly. So that's quite funny. Okay, so now, how do you see the importance of cyber security, which is also crime related, for the next generations of children and teenagers? And do you think the Liberal Party's cyber security plan for children will have a tangible impact?
Well, look, I think our cyber security is very important. You know, we led the debate about the importance of the social media ban for 16-year-olds because we think it's very important. We think it's really important that, and I say this as a parent myself, I have a almost 7-year-old and an almost 3-year-old, and I worry about what life is like for them online, because growing up, this was not something any of us had to worry about, but it's about helping parents and giving them the tools to navigate that. When we were in government, we established the Office of the E-Safety Commissioner, which has been a very important role in helping provide information and set rules on how people can behave online. And so providing parents information, ensuring that you've got that ban, and increasing safety, I think, is important. I think some people have taken the attitude that you shouldn't regulate anything online. I don't think that has ever actually worked. I think when we're talking about vulnerable children, we need to make sure that we've got adequate regulations in place, and we need to make sure that parents are properly equipped.
That's fantastic.
You know, it's really interesting, the issue about, you know, data, privacy, this whole new online world is really the next frontier, right, for many governments. And you can see we're very much responding to the moment at the moment. You see governments grappling with what the challenges are and where to draw that line. And as Julian was just talking about, the debate that it ignited about freedoms and participation and choice and so forth. It's a really interesting space because I do think that that's going to be defining a lot of our society over the next decade or so, particularly as we see generative AI develop, the inputs into the data that we see on that go into generating information, a whole new online world. And it's really incumbent for governments, I think, to draw the right line between ensuring the citizens remain safe and they understand what they're engaging with, while at the same time encouraging enterprise and innovation and doing exciting things with these new technologies. I mean, we're seeing great innovation all over the world in the last, couple of weeks have created some interesting headlines. But it goes to show, I think one thing is indisputable, is the power of innovation and what it can do to strengthen an economy, what it can do to build jobs, what it means in terms of ensuring that the future of Australia is a wealthy one. It's one where we remain a top 20 economy. We have to be alive to these issues where ensuring that government regulation draws that right balance between protecting the citizen and ensuring enterprise. I think that that's going to be crucial for the next decade.
我觉得 Giselle 说的很对的。Like I also run my own education business, and we've got so many young kids. Like Julian's kids' age, in year 2, year 3, 7 years old, 5 years old, and they come in and before their classes, during their break time, guess what they're glued to? That's right, they're glued to their iPad devices, and they're so addicted to it. They're so addicted to it, and let's keep it real. I think all of us here are somewhat addicted to our phones here and there. I am at night, so I even have a tech detox time. 我就觉得很重要，保护我们的小孩子。他们现在越来越喜欢就看这个 iPad 啊，看他们的电话，他们的 phone。我觉得他们也开始可以在我们的学校的时候也开始讲很多东西。So they're saying a lot of things that I think, when we were kids, we weren't aware of, and it shows that they're being exposed to things that children shouldn't be exposed to.
Absolutely.
And 我想刚刚就讲 Julian 的说法，就是我们的自由党是非常很尊重每一个人的每个家庭的 safety，包括我们的小孩子。是非常重要的。当然 Giselle 也说过，我们的 technology 要支持这个经济，不过不可以影响我们的社会，特别我们的孩子的 safety。对。
Yeah, information is so easily accessible on technology these days. Now, if we don't put fences to protect our children, teenager, young community, sometimes even our older community as well, because they aren't as...
Of scams and so on.
True.
We all know older people who have been scammed
Absolutely.
By strange phone calls or the texts or what have you, and this is becoming more of an issue. I want to pick up something that Scott was talking about, which is particularly
Did
for
you
the
understand my
next generation.
Chinese?
Yeah,
I understood what you said, Julian. That was about it. I think there's actually going to be a premium in the next generation for people who have got long concentration spans. And one of the things we see when people are addicted to these things is that their concentration span is shot. And so if you're a family and you've got kids and you want to try and ensure that they're going to do well, the worst thing you can do is put them on that for hours and hours because it just shortens that concentration span. And I'm really... in our family, we worry about this and we really try to restrict screen access. Sometimes we're not as good as we should be, but you want children to develop the habits of a lifetime. So discipline, concentration, perseverance, and so on. And we all have a bit of leisure time. In our time, it was TV, and in their time, it's going to be these devices. But it's I think there's a real issue around the concentration span of younger people, and I think responsible parents and families are really focused on these issues too and are concerned about them.
So true. You're bringing back many memories of the discipline I received from my parents about, you do your piano practice, you finish your homework, you go to ballet class, you do everything, and then you're allowed this much TV time. I remember.
Random questions as well. And Julian, I grew up with a tiger mum.
You did.
Single mum, but tiger mum. They also own a tutoring school in Hurstville, so I grew up in a tutoring school family. family, tiger mum,
There was no
Chinese, Shanghainese. Did you guys have tiger parents?
Yes, 100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
My parents were a bit more lax, I have to say, but they loved me and they sort of
They clearly
said,
did well.
Well, that made it all right.
Did we turn out okay? I hope so.
There were days I wish I'd had more tiger parents because I do think when you're young, just developing those habits of discipline, because if you don't develop them when you're young, it's so much harder to develop them when you're older.
Yeah.
So true.
Absolutely.
Very true.
I admire the tiger parents.
It wasn't fun at the time,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
do
yes.
thank them now. Absolutely. Yes.
Well, clearly, whether you have tiger parents, like myself as well, or have more relaxed parents, they all work out. So it's
It
each to
does.
their own.
That's
Yeah,
true.
That's
That's very true.
Yeah. So health and community safety are very closely linked. Now, do you think the mental health issue contribute to the rise in crime rates, and what specific investments in the Liberal Party would make in like mental health, as you mentioned earlier on as well?
Well, look, I think the most important thing in relation to mental health is that we are providing people with the psychological supports that they need. And I think it was a wicked thing that the Labor Party did, a wicked thing that took away something important from our most vulnerable people by removing the Medicare support for 20 sessions of psychological support. And people have very complex mental health issues.
Yes.
I mean, we are seeing this more and more in the rising generation. The world is more complex and we understand much more about mental health today than we did several years ago. And I think it's so important that we give people at their most vulnerable time the support that they need. And I've long been an advocate for the increase as the chair of the Parliamentary Friends of Suicide
I remember
Prevention.
your
Maiden
speech
speech.
on mental health in your maiden speech, Julian.
So I think, for me, this is very personal. I think it's so important that when people are vulnerable, you support them. And to take away that support, I think, was such a bad policy. So we are restoring it because we know that if you give people adequate support, you're more likely to put them on a pathway to success. And I think that in relation to the safety of our streets, we know that there are people who are sleeping rough, who have mental health issues, and if you're not providing those people with adequate support, then that they end up on the street. And so the sort of baseline level of support, I think,
Absolutely.
is ensuring that they can get to the psychological support that they deserve.
Absolutely. And it's interesting over the last couple of years, obviously we've been through COVID, a lot of isolation,
Yes.
a lot of distance between families as well. Many of us are lucky enough to have our families here. A lot of us aren't. I know so many stories of people who were cut off, a newborn baby arrives. The grandparents haven't met the child because of, border closures and so forth. Isolation because they couldn't, engage with the broader community. Young people who did their, final 2 years online. It's such a stressful time in their lives. And it gets raised with me far too often, actually, on the street. So I was so pleased when I saw the Coalition's promise to the Australian people that that's what we would change if we were given the chance at the next election, because it's so important to have that restoration of mental health, along with all those other wonderful things we do to connect our community again. Comes back right to small businesses, to communities,
Yes.
places where we come together. So important to keep encouraging that. But the first step is to make sure that we're on a path to wellness. So that's a
Absolutely.
very important policy.
And can I just add to that, Minnie, if it's okay, on Julian's and Giselle's point on the path to, a healthy mental mindset, and also, also supporting our streets being safe. That all
Absolutely.
comes down to a lot of the economic prosperity that our country can actually have.
Absolutely.
Because, it's very easy, I think, for any party or any governments to go, oh, well, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, we'll improve this and we'll improve that. But where is that money going to come from? And I think that is so important. And when I talk to small businesses, and I know Julian does in Eastwood, they would have told us about some of the break-ins they've had recently in Eastwood as well. And that's a big challenge. And that's a reflection of the fact that not only do people don't have money to spend and small businesses are making less, but crime rates are going higher. So in
Absolutely.
terms of mental health and in terms of small business, safety for our streets, it all comes down to, I think, building that economic prosperity first.
Absolutely.
Well said.
That's so important.
Can you see how lucky that we are going to be in the federal parliament if I'm joined in the next term by Giselle and Scott? I mean, dynamic, intelligent people who've got great backgrounds, and Scott's language skills. That's going to be so amazing.
I can help you translate if I get
that's
there.
that's
I'll help you
fantastic.
translate.
So,
Yes.
we are all excited about the prospect of you both coming to join us in the federal parliament. And
Absolutely.
I hope the people who are watching this who live in Bennelong and Bradfield will consider voting for our great Liberal candidates, as the people who live in particularly in the new parts of Barara, in Epping and Hornsby and Waitara might consider re-electing me.
Fantastic.
But can I just say, Julian, and not to make this the mutual appreciation club, people like Giselle and I, we're in pretty marginal seats, and as both younger candidates, I think we can work as hard as we can and go out there to talk to as many small business owners, door knock as hard as we can, wear out the shoe leather, in your case, whatever you're wearing,
Absolutely,
like sneakers. But I think looking at the party leadership is very, very important, because we can do a lot of hard work, but if our leadership does better, then we all do better in our marginal seats. And I'm so happy that Julian Lisa is now our Shadow Assistant Minister for Foreign Affairs, and I know our community in Bennelong is very happy about that as well.
Absolutely,
So,
well said.
Thank you.
Well said. And it actually hits our, we talk about foreign affairs as foreign affairs, but foreign affairs, I think, over the last decade has become very local for everybody. And that connection is, not only because of the beautiful multicultural communities that we all represent and come from and so forth, but also because of our trade ties. And it's something you and I have spoken about extensively, Julian. I think it was the ACBC did a study, and they said Australian households are about $2,500 richer in disposable income because of our FTA with China alone. That's just one FTA. I mean, we'll talk about how much of that disposable income remains in their pockets at the moment, considering we've had a very different local economic situation. But goes to show the value of that broader relationship. So we're really excited with your new appointment about ensuring that we maintain those priorities and those relationships as we move forward. It's an exciting time.
It's a very exciting time, and I think you're right, Giselle. The diversity of people that is coming into our parliament as part of the Liberal Party only strengthens our team and strengthens our ability to strengthen those international relationships as well.
That's fantastic. And small businesses support has been one of the most discussed and important topic for us and everyone. Now, with your professional background in banking and wealth management,
I don't think that's me. I don't know.
No, not
I
wealth
was in
management,
a
but
wealth management company
There we
called
go.
Yellow Brick Road
Okay.
Wealth Management. So
There we
I
go.
went
You
to
know
my
it. Scott.
Okay,
for
yes.
3
okay,
years and
so
10 months.
the next question is about tax deduction. So whichever has a specialty on. So this question is, how do you think the Liberal Party's tax reduction policies and instant asset write-off increase will provide practical support to the Chinese small business owners?
Well, I think it's very important. 我觉得这个是非常重要的。如果你是一个 Chinese restaurant owner, 你要投资一个新的 oven, a new oven, for example, that costs a lot of money. And I know people in businesses, for example, in Eastwood and West Ryde, that might have had their restaurant there for 20, 30 years, 20到30年。有几个是新的生意, some are new businesses. But I know a lot of successful franchises out there actually have a rule for their business that every 5 to 7 years there needs to be a new fit out, a new do-over, and that gives a new colour and vibrancy to the business. And just like those franchise businesses, I think it's so important for so many business owners to be able to access this instant asset write-off, and the coalition's committing that from $20,000 to $30,000 permanently, and I think that's very, very positive. And 很多我觉得 华人的澳大利亚人是开小生意的，那我们也要支持他们啊，对吗？我们要给他们信心，也这个希望他们的 business 可以成功的。对。
Fantastic. And as you mentioned, Scott, small businesses are vital to the vibrancy of our communities, offering innovative services and localized operation that deeply connect with the residents' daily lives. Now, what do you see as the broader significance of supporting these businesses for community well-being? Does the Liberal Party plan to introduce additional policies to help small businesses tackle current economic challenges?
Well, I think one of the policies that we've introduced that I'm very proud of, and it may have been covered by Scott in some of the Chinese that I didn't understand, is not just the instant asset write-off, which you're absolutely right, that is a great thing. We're making it permanent. We are increasing it to $30,000 from $20,000. But it's also the tax deductibility that we're providing for people to go and have business-related meals in restaurants and cafes. In each of our communities, in Bennelong, in Bradfield and in Barara, we've got some great restaurants and cafes. I think of Hot Dumpling in Epping. I am absolutely addicted to their chicken, chive and garlic dumplings. I go there about once a week. They're so
Some of our
tasty.
audience
It's not
probably
good for me.
eating that while watching us.
I'm sure they are. It's one of the many great restaurants in the new part of my electorate. But everybody's been doing it tough over the last few years, and this is basically an opportunity to say if you're going in and you're having a business meeting, maybe you're taking your staff even for a thank you meal, that you can deduct that meal up to $20,000 a year. And as we understand as Liberals, because we've all had a background in business, that so often you actually get business agreements and deals done over a meal, and it's the meal that helps actually get people talking and relaxes people. So this is sensible policy that people understand and that affects all of the communities that we live, because we've all got restaurants and cafes. And I think the fact that the Labor Party has opposed this shows they're actually opposed to the businesses in our communities. The Labor Party doesn't want to support the restaurants and cafes in our community, but we will stand with them, and we make no apology for doing so, because we understand the challenges they have, and we understand the challenges of the other businesses who are there, who want to attract new business to get new deals done over a meal. And so this is a great bonus for small businesses.
Fantastic.
And I do think it comes at, that angle that you were speaking about before, that connection between the integrated sense of our communities with those small businesses. I just think of my morning routine where I get up, I walk the dogs, I go to my local cafe, I bump into so many people. I've got Paul the florist there. I've got Hong, who runs our local Vietnamese bakery where I get my coffee every morning, the most beautiful bread. And you bump into everybody along the way and you exchange bits of information.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful moment where the community says, oh, who's renting out this place, or who's leasing this? And you're hearing, little bits of it makes you feel more integrated. And I think those are the kinds of things that lead to better mental health, better connectedness, reduces crime on our streets, because we don't have that disintegration of society. We have a coming together. It's all related. So it's about ensuring, those small businesses really are the heart of our community, and give so much more than just the economic output, which is so important, but so much more than that as well.
Absolutely.
And can I just say, Minnie, I think it's so important, whoever's in government, to think about not just wealth redistribution, but actually wealth creation. And anyone who owns a business, like myself and like many others, know that employees are so important. Without your team, only one person can only do so much. 一个人工是非常重要的。当然，这个老板开这个生意，他也靠很多人。And which employee doesn't like a good team lunch? Which employee doesn't like to spend time with their boss, to catch up with their colleagues? And people who understand a bit about creating a successful business, small business or medium-sized enterprises, know that team culture is so important. You've got to spend time together. And that's to Julian's point and Giselle's point. we need a government that understands how to create a culture that would help businesses thrive, employees are happy, and the country's economy is doing well as well.
Absolutely.
Start by small team building over lunches.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the post-pandemic economic recovery has been slow, with small business owners facing rising operational costs and labour shortage. As we mentioned, the Liberal Party has proposed simplifying the definition of casual workers. Do you believe this could effectively alleviate the current labour shortage?
Well, I think the hardest thing for somebody running a business, and Scott will know this well, running a business, is when you take a chance on somebody.
Yeah.
You know, do you give somebody the chance to have a go at a job or not? And if it's difficult to manage that person, you won't give them a go. And what the Labor Party has done with their industrial relations changes that they brought in is they've made it harder for small businesses to give that person a go. So if we're going to build our economy, we've got to allow small businesses the flexibility that they need and the flexibility that many employees want as well.
That's right.
To try and to start a relationship on a casual basis. We're going to revert to the traditional definition of a casual worker, and that makes it easier for small business. It also, to the point Giselle was making, it means the paperwork burden isn't there too. I mean, small businesses don't have HR departments, they don't have in-house lawyers. You know, it's often a family running the show. They don't have time to sort of get across these things. So we've got to make it simple and easy to apply and easy for people to have the confidence that they can give somebody a go on a new job.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And restoring that choice for the employer as well as the employee.
Absolutely. And think about casual workers, it can include so many, include the local community that we all, you know, embedded into on daily basis, but also think about the working holiday visa maker. A lot of them are in casual jobs, and for them, it's not just a job. For them, they come here to do a cultural exchange, to understand different culture. You know, that will affect their later life because many of them are young people, how they see the world, how they see Australia's beautiful landscape and community, and how the businesses run, and as well as I know many of our international students do some casual jobs during their off time and holidays as well. So it's impacting on many layers, business, cultural and daily life. So casual work is so important, and I believe many of us, our first paying job, apart from helping dad and mum at home, you know, doing a few paid chores, our first paying job is probably a casual job at a local cafe or news agency, right? Or dog walking. One of these. These are all very vital small business that related to our life. Now, for the many small business owners that reported the complex procedures and tax burdens make it difficult to focus on running the business development. Does the Liberal Party have plans to further simplify the business registration and tax filing processes to reduce their administrative burdens?
Well, look, I think the Liberal Party is always about less regulation for businesses, and we're always about making it easier for people to have a go. That's we want to encourage people who are small business, who are thinking about starting a small business, to make it easier for them. So, under a Liberal government, you'll always get less regulation and you'll get lower taxes, and Australians know that because that's the experience. That's what it was like under the previous Liberal government. That's what it was like under the Howard government too. And so that's the general direction that we are going in.
Fantastic. And finally, we're going to discuss multicultural communities and Lunar New Year. Now, as a Chinese Australian candidate, Scott, how do you think a multicultural background strengthens the Liberal Party's engagement with diverse communities, with many communities celebrating Lunar New Year? What do you see as the importance of this event in fostering connection and unity?
Well, I think, when we look around Sydney around this time, whether it's Chatswood or Eastwood or Epping, there's so much vibrancy during this time of the new year, the year of the snake. And when you see cultures just celebrated during, the year of the snake and during Diwali or Holi or anything else, I think it just goes to show how strong and how successful Australia's brand of multiculturalism is. We celebrate so many cultures, traditions, heritage, family stories. I know Giselle's from Armenia. I mean, her parents are. But what I think underpins us as great Australians is a quiet patriotism for our country. We love Australia so much. And sometimes I think as a 32-year-old, what would Australia look like in 20, 30 years' time? And undoubtedly, we are very grateful for our Indigenous history and background and the British coming in and instilling our great democracy. But we're in the third part, this special migrant journey. And I think in 20, 30 years' time, when we're 60, 70 years old, when we're all hanging out playing some lawn bowls probably. I think what brings us all together as Australians is not only our great different cultures, our multiculturalism, but the fact that we have this patriotism, this love for our country, and this ambition and this passion for this great country of Australia to be more successful than ever.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for groups facing language barriers and also cultural differences, does the Liberal Party have specific resources, such as increasing multilingual resources or promoting cultural adapted services?
Well, I think we've always supported the ability of Australians to understand, whatever their background, the laws and the services that are provided, and that's why so much of government information that you get is available in other languages, and that's certainly always been true under our governments and so on. And you will see each of us will produce materials in multi-language, so people have a bit of a sense of our policy, and I think. I'm sure I can speak for the three of us and say some of our material will also be in Chinese, so people for whom English is not their first language and will be more comfortable reading material in Chinese so they can understand some of the policies that we've been discussing and why it's important, and you could say it in Chinese, to vote one Liberal and number every box.
他要我说一定要支持自由党，是这么样。他就说我们非常感恩这么多移民过来的人，在我们这么漂亮的国家澳大利亚。Julian 跟 Giselle 也很感恩，就是有很多人也有时候英文不是他们的 first language，他们也说英文看英文也不是最懂的，所以我们的政府，特别我们的自由党，我们讲我们的想法，我们讲我们的 vision 的 values 的时候，我们也会讲一点中文出去的，对。
And I wish I understood what Scott just said, but I think I'm hoping I'm not repeating, but probably echoing some of the sentiment there. The multicultural communities who've migrated to Australia, I think, have so much more in common than they have difference. I think we've all seen that in our experience. Just even hearing our stories today, we all talk about education. We talk about enterprise, having a go. My father came to Australia with $25 in his pocket. And it is an amazing story where he built his own, got a job and then eventually started his own business with my mum. And, that's how, and the whole time, education, my sister and I went through school. They wanted us to think about nothing else but concentrate on our education. We talk about participating and giving back to our communities in some way. And then we talk about, aspiring to do better than the generation before. And there's a great pride in that, while at the same time taking care of those who've gone before. And I think that's such a commonality across all of those communities who come to Australia and say, how lucky are we?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so well put, Giselle. I think our multicultural communities, particularly the first and second generation migrants, one of the things that they enrich Australia with is they see things that those of us who are born here take for granted. And they see opportunity, and they see, because they've lived elsewhere, they understand the joy, the benefit, the fortune that we have to live in this country.
That's right.
Absolutely. Common shared interest, food, community, looking after family.
That's right.
Exactly.
Can I just say, Minnie, they're Liberal Party values.
They are.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're Liberal Party values.
I think that's the core value, as Giselle mentioned. We actually have more things in common than difference.
Yeah.
That's right.
Fantastic. So a multicultural community requires not just cultural respect, but also equal economic opportunities. So how does the Liberal Party ensure individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds have access to the support and resources needed to succeed and contribute to Australian economy?
Well, I think it's just by providing opportunities for people, by providing equality of opportunity. That is fundamental to what we believe in. It's by providing a strong education system across the three sectors, independent, Catholic and government, and supporting those sectors, by ensuring that we have a high quality vocational education and higher education sector where people can get an education that will equip them with the opportunities to succeed, not just here but right around the world, and then having a series of policies that operate in the labour market and across our society that says you can't discriminate against people, and so provide that equal access of opportunity. We believe as Liberals in the equal access to opportunity. Equality of opportunity is so important. And then it is up to the individual to make the most of his or her talents.
That's fantastic.
That's right. And we can only do that with a strong economy.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
And everything we talked about today is all embedded together. You know, it doesn't matter small business, our economy in overall, you know, immigration, housing, safety, mental health. Think about they all link to one or another. So we can't just do it, you know, with one policy that hopefully that will work or just give some handout. No, we actually have to look after so many aspects and areas to look after as many as possible to make sure everything link to work with another thing. Small businesses, you know, such a grassroots for, I know, a large part of our Chinese and Asian communities, and everyone's life is so important. You know, look at our window. There's so many wonderful restaurants and cafes. I probably venture out to after this interview, and you're welcome to come with me to try some new, afternoon tea bakery, croissant. You know. Name it, whatever you like. Yeah, so that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming onto the show today. Now, that's all the questions we have, and we're so pleased, and thank you for coming today, again, from your very busy schedule. Now, to our audience as well, thank you. Thanks, everyone. I guess round of applause for their time and effort and coming to the show today. I have Julian Lisa, member for Berowra, Giselle Captarian and Liberal candidate for Bradfield, and also Scott Young.
And on behalf of all of us, I want to wish everyone a happy year of the snake. 新年快乐，祝你们身体健康，万事如意，新年快乐，新年快乐。
Thank you so much.